Hi everyone. Hi, welcome back. I'm Kicherra and welcome to my channel, Kicherra Creates. And of course, I am back for another fun painting tutorial. So I am so excited to have you guys with me today. If this is your first time joining me on my channel, please make sure that you subscribe so that you will never miss any of my painting tutorials. So today we're going to do something a little bit different and fun. So with Mother's Day coming up and things of that nature, I was thinking of doing something that's kind of geared towards that. So we are actually going to do like a gift basket with some wine and some chocolate covered strawberries and some flowers and all that good stuff. So I actually got the inspiration for this piece from a really good friend of mine. Her name is Brittany Clark. She has always been not only an amazing friend, but very supportive, very genuine. Everybody knows it's hard to find good friends. They're hard to come by, but she has always been an amazing friend. And not only is she just a good friend, but she also is a fellow YouTuber, and she is amazing. Like, honestly, she gives me so much inspiration. I mean, she's an entrepreneur. She's a very creative and talented person. So I wanted to give homage and give back to her. This is a surprise, so she has absolutely no idea. So the basket that we're recreating today is actually one of her gift baskets from her catering company. And I will make sure that I link all of her information below. Her YouTube channel is called the KSwayy Gang. It's awesome. It's a lot of fun. You guys will love it. Trust me. And her catering company is called Not Your Average Cuisine and Sweets. So we are going to recreate one of her gift baskets and just have some fun with it. So we actually aren't going to make the whole basket or anything. Anyone who's been here before knows I like to draw and paint on a large scale. So we're basically just going to do the wine in the center of it, the strawberries around, and then the roses at the top. So there's not going to be hardly any negative space for this painting, but I still want to go ahead and do a basic coat over everything before we get started. That way it won't take as many layers for us to build our colors when it comes to doing all the other elements of the painting. So with all that talking out the way, let's go ahead and get started. So the strawberries and the roses and everything and the wine for this basket is more like a pinks and yellows and oranges. So I'm just going to do a really light pink all over the background, and then we'll start to sketch out the wine bottle and the strawberries and the roses around it. So usually I sketch everything out. I did not do this time. I just found one of her baskets I thought would be a nice composition for a painting, and we're just going to go from there. So, all right, I'm done talking. Let's start painting. So I'm not going to put too much emphasis on the background because, like I said, there's not going to really be a lot of negative space. So I just got my 2-inch flat brush. I'm just going to make a light pink. I want it pretty pastel. I'm not going to worry too much about if it's all the same shade or anything like that, because like I said, we're going to paint right over top of this. This is just a nice base coat, so that all of our other colors will be nice and bold on top of this, and we won't have to do so many layers of our paint. It's always best to do an underlayer or a base coat. Do your sides, the tops and the bottoms also. And like I said, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on the background because this painting is not going to have a lot of negative space in it. And as you can see, my brush is not overly saturated with water. All right. Just mixing some pink, that's it, nothing fancy. And as per usual, I'm already out of white paint. I go through white paint so fast, I don't know why. But hey, I'm just gonna keep it moving. I'm just getting a nice base coat all the way over the entire canvas, so I'm not being overly picky about if it's perfect or anything like that, because we are going to paint right over top of all of this. There we go. Let me make sure I get this side nice and good as well. That way I don't have to go back and try to touch up the sides and the corners and all that afterwards. Get the top of your canvas too. All right, perfect. So I usually don't like to blow dry just because it's loud, but I'm going to do that today just so we can speed up the process and go ahead and start sketching out the wine bottles and the strawberries and all that good stuff. So bear with me for a minute or so while I blow dry this background. Perfect. That's good enough. It doesn't have to be 100% dry, just dry enough to where you can go ahead and start sketching on top of it without, you know, messing up the background or whatever. So I'm going to just basically sketch out the elements with a white, and then I'm going to go back and add all the colors to it. But, well, first, let me get some more white paint, and then we can start sketching it out with white. Like I always say, white paint is pretty thick because it's very opaque. So you usually need to dilute it a good amount. Come on, paint. Just that way it makes it easier for you to draw or sketch with it. And this is actually going to be fairly easy. Like strawberries are not a hard shape. Even roses aren't really a hard shape to make, especially the composition of the ones that we're going to use today. There we go, finally. All right, so I'm going to just use a traditional round brush. Yours doesn't have to be as large as mine or whatever brush you have, that's fine. I prefer to use a round brush, especially when I'm doing things like this that have curves and things like that. It's just easier to do kind of smooth curves and circles with a round brush. However, I am going to utilize my yardstick or ruler today, just because I want my bottle to be proportionate and in the center of the image. So I am just going to go ahead and do this. So this is a 16 by 20 inch canvas. So I'm going to do my mark right here for my 8, for 10, and 6, because that's the size that I want my wine bottle to be. And then I want it to come up to 15 inches. So I'm going to do my, actually, I'm going to do 14 inches right here. And I'm going to mimic the same thing on this side. Perfect. There we go. Do the same thing on this side. Voila. Basic composition for a wine bottle. Just that easy. Not too complicated. Then we're just gonna arch it. at the top and make our little mark for our wine bottle. And you know what? I'm actually going to paint over that. I want to make this a little bit shorter. Let me actually mark it out though so I can tell you guys the exact amount. So instead of coming up and doing 14 inches, I think I'm going to go down to 12 inches. So, lovely thing about acrylic paint, or painting in general, is that it's very forgiving. Just go back over top of what you did, especially since we dried it off. So I'm just going to cover all that with some of that pink. Don't worry too much about it because like I said, this is all going to get painted over anyway. Yeah, I like it at the 12-inch mark better. I'm just blending out some of the paint that I put on that brush, that's all. Alright, hope that didn't confuse any of you guys, but I felt like doing it at 14 inches was a little bit too large, so I brought it back down to 12 inches. Alright, same thing. I'm gonna make the curve for the wine bottle. And then do the line right here for the top of the bottle. That's it. We're not going to make it any more complex than that as of right now. And this pink up here is still kind of wet considering that I just changed the size of the image, but that's fine. We'll leave that just like that. Perfect. All right, so now I'm going to start laying out some of the silhouettes of the strawberries. So I'm going to want the strawberries kind of going everywhere, and then we'll have the roses up here at the top. So still using this large round brush. I'm just diluting the paint so that it's a nice kind of ink consistency. See how I twist the brush into the paint so it's nice and smooth onto the brush. All right, so I'm just gonna start laying out almost some triangle shapes for my strawberries. They don't all have to be the same size. You don't want them all to be the same size. Don't worry about being too picky with the composition of them right now. We're just laying them out where we're going to have them. And when she does her gift baskets, she loads them up. So she's going to have a good amount of strawberries and everything in here. So up in here, I'm going to stop because she's going to have roses up there at the top, right around there. So the same thing over here. Some more of these little ovals or triangles, different sizes because strawberries are different sizes. They're not all the same size. And I'm not going to make this too complicated or too realistic. I just want it to be fun and pretty. All right, and when it comes to the actual roses, I'm touching this up just a little bit. So when it comes to the actual roses, they're mostly going to be around here, and then you're going to have the greenery. I'm going to do all of our strawberries first and then connect all the stems to the roses and everything. But instead of sketching out the roses with the white, I am going to use a pale yellow for that. Now the roses are like a pink orange combination, so I just thought a nice yellow would be a nice base to sketch the roses out in. And see, I'm just making a nice pale yellow and dilute it some. And I'm gonna just do almost like some U shapes, almost pretty much that same shape to lay out our roses. And I'm just throwing them here and there. Some are gonna go in front of the other ones, behind some of them. So don't worry about if they overlap. That's actually what you want. You want them to overlap. You want some peeking behind the other ones. You basically just want to make sure you have the majority of your space filled in. And like I said, there's not going to be a whole lot of negative space in this painting, which is why I didn't want to be too picky or too fussy about how we lay out the composition. All right. So I'm going to take that same yellow that we used, and I'm going to make some of these strawberries, because like I said, some of these strawberries, they're going to be yellow and white with some drizzles and all that fun stuff. So some of these I'm just going to go ahead and cover up with the yellow. And we're going to keep adding layers and layers and layers onto this. So right now it might just look like some ovals, but it's going to come together. And I'm just using the image of her gift baskets as a reference. Like I said, I'm not going to try to make it too realistic. I just want to make something in homage of her. Something that'd be fun and pretty. Let's see, let's do another yellow one here. And another one here. All right. I'm just going to clean off that brush lightly and go back into that white that we were using. I want it to have a little bit of a yellow tint to it. So I'm going to fill these in with that shade. So all the strawberries that are going to be white, dipped in white chocolate, I'm just going to cover up with this really pastel yellow shade. And painting is all about layering color. So really this is just kind of a base coat on each one of these little strawberries. Just adding a really pastel yellow to these. All right. Now, up in here, I'm going to start making some of these lighter and darker. So I'm going to start making almost like an orange. Well, not like an orange, but a pretty bright orange. So I'm just adding some red and some white and a little bit of yellow. It almost gives you like a coral color. And y'all, I know I got an accent. I know I'm country, but hey, I can't help that. All right, so until we get to kind of like that color. And some of them I'm just gonna color in with this shade. And I'm just playing around with it. I'm not being too particular. And all this negative space is going to get filled in anyway Right now, I just want the color of the roses to be different than the colors of the strawberry. So then when we go back and start setting out the compa or adding more detail, it makes it a little bit easier for you to see the elements of the image. All right, you know what? Let me make this one a little bit darker too. All right, so I'm going to add some more red into that orange that we just made, and a little bit more yellow just to make a deeper tone of what we already just laid out. There we go. And go around to those other roses. And don't be too worried about if the colors are 100% the same, because like I keep saying, it's all about layering the colors. So right now, we just want some of them to be darker and some of them to be lighter. That's all that we're doing. So I'm just adding all these extra ones, adding a darker shade to those where those flowers are going to be. All right, perfect. We're going to let those dry and we're going to come back down here and we're actually going to switch to a smaller round brush, if I can find my round brush. Here we go. And we're going to start doing our greenery and everything for our strawberries. We're going to do that first and then we'll come back and start adding some of that definition to the roses up there. So I'm just going to add some of our base green, a little bit of yellow to that, a little bit more yellow. And I'm just going to lay out a base coat, so I'm not going to do all my shadowing and everything yet. But I'm going to just do some little leaves at the top of the strawberry. So I like to start with a little line and then do some kind of curved shapes. Do an arch on the sides and one in the middle. On the sides and in the middle. Start with your little line at the top. Then on the side of each strawberry, one side, and a little one in the middle. Same thing for all the rest of them. Carry it off to the side if yours goes off to the side. I'm not being overly picky. Some are in front, some are behind. That's exactly what we want. See, they're already starting to look more like strawberries. Not making it overly complicated, just adding the top part to these strawberries. And these strawberries are covered in white chocolate, so I'm not going to add too much of the red detail in the tips, just so it's not too complex. Like I said, this piece is not going to be overly realistic. It's just going to be nice and pretty. So same thing at the top, on the sides, and in the middle. That's all I'm doing. I'm going to dilute my brush just a little bit. And I only add green and yellow to this. I didn't add any white or anything else to this green shade. So top, side, middle. top, side, side, middle. Top, side, side, middle. Same thing, top, the side, the middle. Same thing, top, side, middle. And the great thing about acrylic paint is that it dries so fast, is what I love. Because by the time we do this, these will be dry enough to where we can start adding the greenery and some of the stems up in here, which is perfect. I love acrylic paint. It dries fast, so it does not take forever to make a wonderful painting. All right. So up in here, I am going to use a darker green. So I'm gonna add a little bit more green to that green that we were using for the strawberries. Add a little bit more green to it to deepen it, and I'm gonna add a teeny tiny bit of red, just a touch of red to it, just to darken it. You want to add your red gradually because it deepens it up quite a bit. If you add too much red, it's just going to turn it brown. So once you get a nice dark green, then you're ready to go. If you do feel like you add too much red into it, brighten it up with some yellow and some green. Try not to use white because it will turn it into a pastel shade, unless that's what you want to go for. So up in here, I'm going to kind of do little arches at the bottom of each one of these little roses. Just little, almost U shapes. Just like that. And we're gonna, instead of doing them going down like we did for the strawberries, we're gonna do a line going up in the center and around for each one of those roses. The center and around. Center and around. Same thing, center and around. Center and around. See how that's already changing the composition so much? Giving it more definition. Center and around. Center and around. Center and around. The center of the rose and then around to the sides. The center and then around to the sides. So that's the reason why I wanted that green to be darker than the green down here, because where these kind of get close to each other, I didn't want to lose the lines or make it too complex to where you can't see where they stand out. So I'm not going to worry about doing all the stems and all of that as of yet, because we're going to use the stems and all the leaves and all of that for the roses to fill in all of this negative space. So let's go ahead and start paying some attention to in here to our wine bottle. So I'm going to go back to that original round brush that we had, our larger round brush. Gonna get some white, get some red and a little bit of yellow. And I want to get a really kind of pale, almost orange or coral color. I'm not going to cover up all of that white outline. I'm just going to kind of blend into the middle and to the sides of it. So I'm still going to leave some of that outline showing. That's the reason why I used a pink background, because I knew it would look nice. It would aid in that color, because that is what I wanted. There we go. I'm going around the sides. There we go. And we're just gonna leave that there. We'll add more definition to that later. But yeah, I like that shade, so I will leave that alone. All right, so now let's start giving some love to some of these strawberries. So I'm gonna play around with the white ones first. And remember, we did do a really kind of light yellow on the sides of those. So I'm gonna get some yellow and some white. And make a pale yellow, but just not as pale as the one we used earlier. And I'm gonna start doing some little markings on the sides. You see I'm going around the corner, and then I'm kind of pushing the paint outwards. This is gonna give the effect of a rounded look, or a three-dimensional look. And I'm using this really pale yellow on the strawberries that are going to be white. Even though they're white, we don't want to just fill them in all the way with white paint. We still want them to have dimension and color and all of that. So as you can see, I'm going around the sides and then pulling the paint out towards the middle. And that's all I'm doing. I'm doing that for all of them. Around the sides and then pulling the paint out. Now, if you accidentally touch any of the green or whatever, don't worry too much about that. You can always go back and touch up everything. So to the sides and pull the paint out. To the sides and pull the paint out. All the ones that are going to be white, we're using this yellow. Let me add a little bit more water to this brush. Dilute that just a little bit. There we go. And like I keep saying, painting is all about layers. You can't just fill it in and go. You want to keep adding color, color, color to it. So around the sides and then push the paint towards the middle. Around the sides and then to the middle. Around the sides and to the middle. Around the sides and into the middle. Around the sides and into the middle. See? Nothing too complicated. Around the sides and then into the middle. All right, let me take a quick step back really fast. All right. So I am going to go ahead and with that darker green that we had, I'm going to use the same larger round brush. With that darker green that we had, let me dilute that some. And I am going to start laying out where some of the stems are going to go, just to start filling in some of this negative space. And you don't need to be overly picky. Just add some long stems kind of going down in between your strawberries. Mind you, it does not have to be 100% perfect. Most of this is going to get covered up with leaves and all that good stuff. As of right now, we're just adding some more layers. Start to cover up this negative space. But as you can see, I like to start from the top and then bring the lines down. There we go. And this is just going to fill in some of that negative space. I'm not going to be too difficult or too detailed with these stems because they are going to basically get covered up with all the leaves and everything for the roses. This is just to aid in that process. Get rid of some of these pink in the background. That's all I'm doing is just add in some little stems. In and around, in between the strawberries, around the wine glass, or excuse me, bottle. That's about it. And I'm kind of just filling in some of that negative space where the pink is. Not being overly complicated. And see how much that already changes the composition or the feel of the image. Just by adding little touches here and there, it makes a big difference. All right, let me step back one last time. All right, perfect. So now, just like we added some detail on the sides of where, of where the white ones are going to be, we added a little touch of some pale yellow. The ones that are going to be yellow, we're going to add a touch of some orange or some coral to that. So I'm going to use some red, get some white, some yellow, until we get a nice light coral shade. I think I like that. I'm gonna dilute it some. I might want to lighten it just a little bit more, add some more white and a little bit more yellow to it. I'm adding yellow so I get more of a coral instead of a pink. A little touch of red. All right, and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to go around the sides and then blend it out into the middle. Around the sides and blend it out into the middle. Around the sides and blend it out towards the middle. Around the sides and blend it out towards the middle. Just diluting the paint some so it won't be too thick on my brush. All right, do that right here too, around the sides and out towards the middle. Around the sides, out towards the middle. Around the sides and out towards the middle. Around the sides, out towards the middle. Around the sides, and then push the paint out towards the middle. That's all you're doing. Around the sides, and then push the paint out towards the middle of each one of those strawberries. Around the side and out towards the middle. Do the same thing on the other side. Around the sides and blend it in towards the middle. All right, let me take another step back. Let me look. All right, I'm starting to like how it's coming along. All right, then here I'm going to add some of that coral. I'm going to make it a little bit darker. That same coral that we used to add highlights to those yellow strawberries. Or excuse me, shadows. Shadows are darker. We added shadows. All right, I like that. I'm not going to add any more paint. I'm just diluting my brush with some water and I'm going to blend some of that out. And see, I'm kind of just free flowing when it comes to how I paint, especially if it's something like this that I didn't sketch out. I just like to go with the flow. And see how I'm still leaving some of that white border, just so that it doesn't blend in too much with the roses and the strawberries that we laid out. And with that being said, I'm going to add some white into that coral, a good amount of white. Thin it down till you get a really pastel shade. And kind of go back around the sides of our wine bottle. And see, I'm kind of just playing around with it, not making it perfectly smooth or anything like that. Just adding some more layers of colors to it. That's legitimately all that I'm doing. Let me back up. I'm not worried about covering up any of those lines at all, because we are going to go around this and add details. We're going to add the label and all that good stuff. So I'm going to add some white on the sides, and the same thing we did with the strawberries, push it out or into the middle. There we go. Same thing on this side. Add some white, and it's not going to be all the way white because I didn't clean off my brush, but just add some white to your brush and start to blend it into the middle of that wine bottle, and kind of wiggle your brush together in the middle to kind of blend it in some. Add some of that love up in here too. And add a little touch of yellow in there also. Really pale yellow. Not cleaning the brush off, just added a little bit of water to it. And just kind of adding some more color variation into that wine bottle. And a little bit more yellow. Brighten it up some. There we go. And that same kind of wiggling back and forth or squiggly motion, kind of start to blend that out some. There we go. Like always, let me step back and look at it. Okay, I'm starting to like that shade. Now you see why I did the pink in the background, because we're not going to have to add too many layers to this wine bottle. All right. Cleaning my brush off. All right, up in here, and the ones that are going to be white, I'm going to get some white paint, of course. Add just a teeny tiny bit of yellow to it. But mostly white. Like I keep saying, white is very thick, so thin it out some. And in the middle, do some squiggly motions like this. And all of the strawberries that are going to be white. If you cover up any of the greenery, that's fine, because we can always go back and touch that up. And we're not covering up everything with the white, we're just kind of focusing it in the center. There we go. There we go. All right. Let's see. And I'm just playing around with it, just blending it out some more. You don't want it to just be flat in the middle. You kind of want it to blend out to the sides just a tad bit. All right, let me step back again. All right. And for the ones that are yellow, we're going to do a light yellow as well and do that same technique. So I'm just going to get some yellow and some white. Make a nice light yellow. Not really a pastel, just a light yellow. And same thing in the middle. Just kind of wiggle some of that yellow into the middle. I'm just wiggling from the middle and kind of trying to blend it out to the sides. That's it. Nothing complicated. All right. Now, before I start adding a whole bunch of color and all that into the roses, I'm going to start covering some of this up with some of the leaves. So I'm going to get some more green paint, some yellow, and a little bit of that red, just a touch of red to deepen that green up. I'm going to dilute my brush. And I'm mostly doing everything with this larger round brush today. You can use a smaller brush, however, the smaller the brush, the longer it is going to take. So I'm just going to start laying out some leaves, which is why I said don't be too picky about where you put anything, because most of this is going to get covered up with leaves and all that good stuff too. So I'm literally just adding leaves. If it covers over any of your roses a little bit, that is perfectly fine. Anyone who's ever gotten a bouquet, excuse me, you know that's what happens anyway. So, and I'm going to put some kind of going here and there around the wine bottle also. Some leaves going in between the strawberries too. And remember, we're going to go back and touch up all the greenery with the strawberries also. So, like I said, I don't want a lot of negative space for this piece, which is why I'm using mostly this larger round brush. And I'm just randomly throwing out where I want some leaves to go. I'm not even really thinking about it too much. I'm just throwing out some leaves wherever I see there's some negative space to cover up some of those stems of our roses. If you go over any of the wine bottle, don't worry, because you can always go back and add definition to that later. And touch all that up. Let me dilute my brush some more. All right, and up in here, I'm just going to intensify the base of each one of those roses. We're just adding another layer to the greenery, the bottom part of each of those roses. And see, I'm not being too picky or trying to be too precise. This painting, it's not going to be overly realistic. So just kind of have fun with it. All right, let me step back and look at it again. All right, I'm gonna start building some color into the roses. So in these lighter ones, I want to add some yellow at the bottom of them. So I'm just going to get some yellow and a little bit of white and a little teeny tiny bit of red. Mostly yellow though. I don't want it to be coral. I still want it to have a yellow tone. So that's the color right there. And at the bottoms, I'm just going to kind of add some of that shade. And see, I'm kind of just dabbing it at the bottom, not being too picky or whatever. All right. And for the darker ones right here, let's step back for a second. I'm gonna add more of a pink to those. Not a pale pink, but just kind of a base pink. So just some red and some white. And at the bottom of those, just add some pink to it. If you cover up any of your greenery, like I keep saying, don't worry about it. We're going to go back, continue to go back and keep adding layers and layers. So it's okay. All right, let me take a step back again. All right. So we are going to go back into these strawberries and add some more shadows around the sides. So, and all the ones that are going to be the white, we're going to add some coral, a light coral to the sides. So I'm just thinning out my paint just a little bit right in here on the corners. And I'm not adding a lot. I'm pretty much just using the tip of my brush. The same thing, push it out to the sides. Go around the sides, push it out towards the middle. And my paint is pretty thin on my brush right now. It's pretty diluted. So it's not too thick, so it's not going to cover up all the layers that we already did. It's just going to kind of add to them. Same thing on the sides and blend into the middle. On the sides, blend into the middle. Sides, blend into the middle. The sides, blend into the middle. Nothing's changed, just on the sides, blend into the middle. On the sides, blend into the middle. Same thing. Nothing's changed, just on the sides and blending into the middle. Add some on the sides, blend into the middle. Add some on the sides, blend into the middle. All right, going to step back again. And yep, need more white paint already. Again. Let me get my paint. Give me a second while I get my paint. I'm gonna let these dry a little bit, and then, so I'm going to go back in with some white. I'm going to dilute it a good bit. I did not really clean my brush off, so it still has some of that kind of a peach tone to it, but I want this nice and thin and really dilute it. Because in here, I'm going to do like we did earlier. Go in with some of that light tone and blend it out into the middle. Let me dilute that just a little bit more. I want the ends of it, or the edges, to be nice and smooth. Then just blend it out into the middle. Dilute the brush again so that it blends smoothly, nicely. There we go. All right, I'm gonna add some touches of yellow into the middle of there also. Didn't clean my brush off, just diluted it. Get some more water into that light yellow shade that we made earlier. And right in the middle, blend in some of that yellow. And we're just blending it out. All right. Step back again. I know I keep saying that, but that's what I do. Okay. Not too bad. I'm gonna start playing around with these flowers up here. All right, so I'm gonna make a pretty dark pink. Just add in some red and some white. Thin that out just a little bit. And I'm gonna kind of go over, well, not kind of, I am gonna go over some of those layers that we already put down. See, I'm going from the sides and then into the middle. Then the lighter coral ones, I'm just gonna add some more yellow into that pink that I just had, and some white. A little bit more red into there. A bit more red and yellow. There we go. And see, that's why I kept saying don't worry too much about the greenery, because most of it's going to get covered up. We just wanted it to fill in the background some. We just wanted to use it to mainly fill in the background. And you see I'm making these larger too. Step back again and look at it again. Okay, it's starting to come together. All right. So I'm gonna get some white paint, but like always, I want it nice and thin. So I'm gonna add a good amount of water to it. I want it nice and thin. So I'm gonna go back over these white strawberries. I want the pink thin because I still want to see some of those colors poking out from behind those strawberries. So as you can see, I'm making these a little bit larger too. Cover up some of that greenery in the background. And painting is all about layers, layering, layering. That's all we're doing is adding more and more layers, more and more layers. So this paint is pretty thin, so you can still see some of those shadows and things underneath. Don't forget this one right up here. All right, stepping back again. Okay. Same thing with the yellow ones. Just gonna use some white and some yellow, make a really pale yellow, not too pale. Thin that paint out some. A little bit too thick, so I'm gonna thin that paint out some more. And see, add some more yellow to that. There we go. All right, while we let those dry a little bit, I'm going to add some brighter yellow and a little bit of that red to make a nice coral shade. And I'm going to start adding some color layers to some of these flowers up in here. You see, I'm kind of just adding strokes left, right, and into the middle. Nothing too complicated. And I'm kind of adding some to each one of those flowers. Let's see. Okay. I'm going to add some bright yellow to those too. I'm going to add just a touch of white into it. Not too much because I don't want it to turn pastel, but let's add some pops of yellow in there also. And see, I'm just going kind of around the sides and into the middle of them. And then I'm going to go back with some of those oranges and pinks to add some more layers to that as well. Some more layers of color. I'm just adding some red and some white to make a nice pink. On the sides and into the middle. On the sides and in the middle. Sides into the middle. That's all I'm doing. I'm giving some of them, or each of them, some love with this color. Now I'm going to make a darker shade by just adding some more red to it. And I'm going to focus that shade more so on the ones that are behind, because those would naturally be darker anyway, because they would have a shadow. All right. We'll leave that alone. I'm stepping back again. Start back with some of these, excuse me, not roses. Some of these strawberries again. The ones that are yellow, I'm going to just go ahead and add some bright yellow into the middle of them. All right, I'm going to add some white to my brush with that same yellow on it and get a really pale yellow. Dilute that some and do that same thing for the white ones. just more white and yellow. Mixing up some more of that really pale yellow to add to those white strawberries. All right, with the yellow ones, we're going to do what we did earlier and go around the sides of them with some shadows. Gonna add some red to that yellow that we originally used. And around the sides and push into the middle. Around the sides, blend it into the middle. Around the sides and blend into the middle. And blend into the middle. Around the sides, blend it into the middle. Around the sides, blend it. Same thing around the sides and blend it into the middle. All right. With the white ones, I'm going to do the same thing, but with a little bit of a darker shade of yellow. I want it to have color variation to it, so I don't want it to just be plain white. We're going to do the same thing. And let's bring that up just a little bit more, add some more yellow to that. There we go. There we go. Around the sides, blend it into the middle. Around the sides, blend it into the middle. Around the sides, blend it into the middle. Same thing. Around the sides, blend it in towards the middle. Around the sides, blend it in towards the middle. Around the sides, blend it in towards the middle. Around the sides, a little bit more yellow. There we go. Around the sides, blend it in towards the middle. Around the sides, blend it towards the middle. All right, so I'm gonna switch to one of my smaller round brushes, the one I had earlier. And these strawberries have some frosting or some white chocolate drizzles on them. So I'm going to get some white paint and add a little bit of yellow into it. I want it thin, but not too thin. See, I'm just twirling into it, twirling into it. And on these yellow ones, I'm going to add some squiggles just to give the look of some white chocolate drizzles. And dilute that just a little bit more. I'm not being too picky about it. Just squiggly lines. That's it. Squiggles, squiggles, squiggles. All right. And on the white ones, or the lighter ones, I'm going to do that with some yellow, but a darker yellow. So I'm just going to use some base yellow, add a little touch of red to it, and some white. Let's see, it's still pretty dark, pretty bright anyway. Dilute that some so it's not too thick. Same thing, little squiggly lines. I think I might add some little pops of coral into these ones too. I'm just adding squiggles to give the look of some white chocolate drizzles to it. Just add in some squiggles to all of them. Not too complicated. All right, let me take another step back. Let me look what we got going on. All right, so I think I'm going to start the label for this wine bottle. So I just switched to my flat brush, and I'm going to use a little bit of white and some yellow. A really pale shade. And I'm just going to eyeball it, so. And I'm just using the edge of the flat brush to do my line at the top, bring my line down, and then close it off and fill it in. All right, take a step back again. Bring this over some more. All right, let me see again. Perfect. I'm going to make the top of the wine bottle yellow. So I'm just going to fill all of that in with yellow. that brush off. Go back in with some of that light pink to refine the shape of the wine bottle. So off on the sides. And I'm kind of just eyeballing it. Step back again. Sorry if I'm standing right in the middle of the camera. Just bear with me for a second. There we go. I decided to make this just a little bit smaller. Cleaning off my brush, get more white paint. Add in just a little bit to some of these strawberries right here, make them a little bit larger. There we go. And I'm just going to cover it up with some of that yellow that we used for our white chocolate drizzle. There we go. Step back again, like I keep saying. Okay. I'm liking that. I'm going to add a little bit of yellow, a little bit of red and some white to that yellow to make a coral. Add a little bit more red. Dilute that a good amount and add some of that to some of the yellow drizzles that we did. Just so it stands out just a little bit more. And just add in some coral to all the little white chocolate drizzles where there was yellow, just to add some more color layers to it. All right, perfect. Now I'm going to take that same small brush and start adding the leaves again to the strawberries. So some green, of course, and some yellow. A little bit of red to deepen it. And I'm just going to start adding some little leaf shapes to the top of those strawberries. And pretty much like we did before, dilute that paint just a little bit. Start at the top and then come around to your sides and add some leaves for your strawberries. Add a little bit more red if you notice that your paint starts to get too light. Here we go. At the top, and then come around to both sides of it. At the top, come around to both sides. If your paint gets too thick, add some water to it. Same thing, start at the top, around to the sides. At the top, around to the sides. At the top, around towards the sides. At the top, around towards the sides. Same thing at the top, around towards the sides. Add a little bit more red. The top, round towards the sides. Start at the top, then do 2 little leaves on the side. 2 leaves on the side. 2 leaves on the side. Middle, leaves on the side. Middle, leaves on the side. Middle, leaves on the side. All right, stepping back again, like always. Okay, I'm starting to like that. I'm gonna let that dry a little bit and give some more attention to this glass. I'm actually going to, I think I'm gonna use a smaller flat brush, but I'm gonna use a little bit of black and make a fairly light gray. So some black and white until I get a nice light gray. Now, black and white is very opaque, like I always say, so you usually have to water it down a good bit. But, all right. I'm gonna go around the edge. Of the bottle with that gray shade. And at the bottom, kind of blend it in. And right up here at the top, kind of blend it in some. Let me step back. Okay. I'm gonna take my large round brush again, no paint or anything, just some water, and blend that out. And step back again. Okay, it's coming together. Add another little leaf poking in right there. There we go. And right here, I feel like there's some space right in there. And of course, I need some more white paint again. There we go. I'm gonna add a touch of white right here. Fill in some of that space. right here too. All right, I'm gonna add some white down in here too, where we put some of the gray. Wipe off my brush, get some water so I can just blend that out. I'm just gonna add some of that white onto the sides also. Alright, I'm just playing around with the white, that's all. Now this right up in here, I'm going to switch to a liner brush, but not too teeny tiny. So if you don't have a liner brush, you can just use your smaller round brush. And I'm actually going to use a little bit of brown. If I can find it. Finally, I found it. And I'm going to start doing some of the definition at the top of the wine glass. So I'm going to use really dark brown, so I'm going to add some orange into that. Let me get some more yellow too while I'm getting paint. There we go. And a touch of red. Some red, black, red, brown, and yellow. And let me thin that down a good amount so it's not too thick. All right. And I'm going to see how I rounded it out, and then just did some lines to make the top. Go down the sides, at the base, and I'm going to blend that out too. First, let me dilute the brush. There we go. Dilute it again. There we go. And I'm just the same thing we've been doing, pulling that paint out to the sides. And we're going to do our highlights and shadows at the end with the black, so don't worry too much. And see, we just used that bright yellow as the base for that. Speaking of yellow, I'm going to switch back to my 1-inch flat brush, get some yellow, and kind of blend it into some of that light coral that we had, and add some love right in here where we started our label for our wine bottle. I want to add just a touch of white right here. There we go. I'm just brightening up that label some. Not covering up every little layer that we put down, but just brighten it up some, adding some more streaks of color into it. Step back one more time. All right, pretty. Now we're gonna have some fun with these roses up here. I'm not gonna be too picky about them because, like I said, this is not gonna be an extremely realistic piece. I'm gonna play around with the roses, and then we'll add some more highlights and all that fun stuff down here. You know what? We missed the little spot right here. Where's my small round brush? There we go. Add a touch of that yellow and coral up in here. There we go, leaving that alone. So we're gonna play around with these roses up in here. Then we're gonna add some color variations into the leaves, and we'll do our label. Then we'll finish it off with some touches of white and black, and then, believe it or not, we'll be done. So I'm just gonna make up a nice pink, just some red and some white. Using my large round brush again, and just to the sides and then to the middle. To the sides and to the middle. To the sides and to the middle. And to the middle. Both sides and into the middle. Just kind of here and there, everywhere. I'm not being overly picky about them. Don't worry if you cover up any of the greenery, that's fine. We're going to keep adding layers to this anyway. Get some more red onto your brush. I didn't clean my brush off. I'm just adding more red to it. Adding some touches of red to some of these. All right, make a bright orange by adding some yellow into there. And some pops of yellow in there also. Or some pops of that orange in there. All right, playing around with some more pinks. Make even a lighter pink this time. More of a coral because I'm mixing it with that orange that we just used. I am going to dilute that just a little bit. And see, this light pink I'm not putting everywhere. I'm just putting in certain little areas where I feel like I want to add a little bit more color. And I'm going to get some more red paint. That same brush. Add some red into that light pink that we use. And add some touches here or there. All right, so we're going to leave that alone for right now. So up in these leaves and everything, let's add some touches of some bright greens and some yellows. So I'm still using the same round brush, getting some green and some yellow, making a nice bright or neon green shade, and adding some of that tone to each one of the little leaves of our strawberries. I'm not covering up the entire leaf. I'm just adding some touches of those colors here and there. Don't worry if you do go over any of the green that you did, that's fine. You want the colors to blend nicely together, so that's perfectly fine. I'm just adding a little touch of this brighter green everywhere. Just adding little touches here and there. Nothing picky. And the same where some of these areas where just the random leaves are too. Adding some of those brighter tones there also. That bright green. Just adding more layers of color, adding more dimension to the painting. All right. Clean my brush off just a little bit. Just get some yellow. And I already need more yellow paint. There we go. Add touches of yellow too. And see, I did not clean off my brush, so it still has some green on my brush, which is fine because I want these colors to blend in to each other. And we are going to go back with the black and the white to add a lot of definition to define all the little elements of this piece. All right, like always, let me step back again. Okay, I'm pretty much liking that. In any area where I feel like I put just a little bit too much yellow, I'm going to go back with some more of that bright green and just kind of break it up here and there. And kind of just add in a little bit of each one of these shades to all of these random leaves everywhere. All right, so while we let that dry some, I am going to do the label. Now, I was not decided if I wanted to do the name of her catering company or if I wanted to do the name of her YouTube channel, but since we are on YouTube, why not just do the name of her YouTube channel, which is the KSwayy Gang. So I'm just gonna take some black and a small brush. If you don't feel comfortable writing with your paintbrush, you can let your painting dry and then you can go back and use a Sharpie or a paint pen or something like that. But I prefer to use my paintbrush, maybe just because I'm really familiar with it. And I'm just gonna do these in black. So I might step in the way just slightly while I start the words. All right, I just roughly drew it on there. So the name of her channel is the KSwayy Gang. So I didn't want to do it too large, but just defining it some more with the black. And I'm not being overly precise either. Like I said, it's not going to be overly realistic. I just want it to look pretty. I'm going to go back and add some highlights of white into that also. I'm actually going to, I think, do my signature right here. I think it'd be nice to add to the composition of the bottle, especially since I did the wording up here at the top. All right. Now I'm going to take that large round brush again with my green and do my little definition up in here on each one of my rose petals. So around and then in the middle. So around to each side of the rose and then into the middle. Around to each side and into the middle. Around to each side and then into the middle. Just diluting my brush a little bit because that paint was pretty thick. So same thing around each side into the middle. Around each side into the middle. If you feel like your paint got too thin, just add a little bit more to it. Add a little bit more to your brush. Around each side and then into the middle. Around each side of the rose is and into the middle. Same thing for all of them. All right, so now we are going to do our highlights with some white and our lowlights with some black, and then we are completely done. So I'm going to do that with just our smaller round brush. Gonna thin down the white a good amount. When it comes to doing the highlights and the lowlights, I'm kind of random with how I do it. So on each little strawberry, we're gonna add some on the edges. Going to add just some touches of white. And see, I'm not covering up the whole entire thing. This is why I didn't want the strawberries to just be all the way white. I wanted to give them a touch or a hint of some yellow or actual tone or tint to them, so that I could use my white and my black to make some really crisp highlights and shadows. And this white and black is really going to help them stand out from each other. All that fun stuff. Gonna add some touches of white into the flowers also, just kind of here and there. Same thing, I'm not being overly precise, I'm just adding some white in some places. I have the tendency, if I do some on the left or in the right, to do some in the middle also. All right, let me step back. I'm gonna use my white right in here. Just adding some little white highlights here or there. Add some to this guy too. All right, same brush. I'm gonna use my black. Gonna dilute that a good amount. All right, I'm gonna start with the leaves and added some touches of black to each one of those. The leaves of the strawberries. And kind of just add in some definition on the sides of them. Just add in some touches of black to the little leaves of each strawberry. Just kind of adding some in the middle and then around the sides of each of the leaves of the strawberries. All right, and then I'm going to add some touches of black into the greenery of the flowers as well. Not too much, kind of just little here and there. Just adding touches of black here and there, just wherever I feel like I need some definition or want something to stand out some more. All right, down in some of these areas, add little touches of black around all these random little leaves to give them some shape. Dilute the brush again, thin out this paint some more. Let's see. All right, and I'm going to switch to a liner brush. Our liner brush is just a really small or really thin round brush. I don't want to use my smallest one though. There we go. Make sure this black is nice and thin. Up in here, I'm gonna go around the sides of the top of my bottle. And I'm going to do there we go. Go back in there and add some touches of white too. But around in here, I'm going to add some areas of black too. And I'm just kind of playing around with the black and the white, as you guys can see. Just any areas where I feel like something needs to stand out a little bit more. All right, let me step back again, like I keep saying. All right, I'm gonna add some touches of black into the strawberries. And I'm kind of doing little strokes to the side instead of just doing smooth lines for these little shadows. All right, and up in here in the roses, some little touches of black here and there also. All right, and after I do this, the last thing I'm gonna do is some white highlights right in there, and then we're done. I'm not doing anything else after that. All right. Yep. Clean that brush off nice and good. Get some of my white paint, make sure it's nice and diluted so it's not too thick. And I'm gonna add some highlights up in here, in between those lines. All right. Let me take a step back one last time. All right, perfect. I like that. I think that's pretty. So I'm just gonna leave it like that. Again, if you enjoy this, please make sure you like, share, and subscribe so that way you don't miss any of my lovely painting tutorials. And make sure that you guys send me any comments, suggestions, or any ideas of any paintings that you would like to see in the future. And again, this piece was dedicated to a really good friend, another entrepreneur, and another fellow YouTuber. Her name, or the name of her channel, is the KSwayy Gang. So I'll link all of her information down below so you guys can check out her channel as well. And I will see you guys next time. Again, thank you all so much for joining me. I had so much fun. I will see you all later.